Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophia, pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue exploring supposedly classical China era's concepts. And today's character is Jing. And you can see simplified traditional and 2000 years ago script, three rendering versions. I was born into the simplified, but traditional shows more connection to way back when, 2000 years ago. And so normally in One Word a Day, I would just unpack the 2000 years ago ones. And you can kind of visually see how things got simplified. But when we trace back further, then we can tell better how things are making sense back then. Okay, so Jing warp. It's translated as warp, probably as the original meaning, but of course, language was used by humans, and humans facing all kinds of different scenarios and situations. And then, of course, this character was going to be transferred, appropriated, applied to different usage, and it became such a big part of our like cultural media or carrier that we can, through this character Jing, see a lot of how Chinese conceptualize things. Okay, so warp, how Chinese originally expressed this warp. It turned out as a warp. Well, it doesn't mean changing or shifting the straight line into a warped shape. It doesn't mean that. It means in terms of a weaving, we have a warp and a weft. So warp is vertical line and weft is horizontal line, and then you crisscross kind of overlay like this, so that fabric, the woven fabric, stay together without unthreading easily. So the left side here, the spools of thread visually connected, and then with either I interpret it as the root because it's plant-based, so it grow, the fibers grew from the ground and through processing made it into yarns and woven into fabric. So either it shows the root or the end result, which is this drapey shape of fabric. So the left side is our radical that has anything to do with textile, anything to do with clothing or fabric. So we have the left side that's categorically shows it's related to textile. And of course, warp is one major directions of textile, right? And I mean, if you know weaving just a little bit, based on my shallow understanding of what weaving is this warp is a very taut line facing the weaver from top down. And then the weaver would thread horizontally, right? With I forgot what's that thing called, but the thread holder weave ups and down to have this weft thread going through those warp. So warp, almost in terms of weaving, forms the skeleton or the structure to put things together. And then the pattern, the colors you want to put in is wefting through it. So warp gives you the framework. The right side is Jing, pronounced as Jing. We don't use it as single on its own anymore. It become part of the radicals and make into other characters. But originally, this Jing means underground water. Very easy to see. Here, the horizontal line, even if it's on top of the frame, normally on top of the frame, it means the sky. But in this case, the water is below this horizontal line. So we can deduce this horizontal line actually is the ground. And the water, there's a three, curvier thing. It's below the ground. So underground water. Then what's the bottom here? Okay, the bottom here is what I in other cases read as a gong, and that is the tri-square, the ancient craftsman's tool to make sure things are going perfectly perpendicular. As you can see, there are these 90-degree angles formed by this shape, which is kind of a toppled letter H. And that in Chinese is associated with craftsmen, with the tool, with engineering even. So this water running underground with this engineering symbol is the water, the intricate waterways underground. And that underground waterway paired with this fabric symbol give you the sense of this warp, because the underground water probably goes from the higher ground water trickling down, right? So it's this vertical, this gravitationally vertical line formed through the water underground. And that gives you the sense of the direction. It's this vertical. It's related to gravity, and it's paired with fabric or textile, and that points to warp. Okay, long-winded. I hope I make it clear. 诗经 poetry, warp. So in this case, this warp, almost like a Chinese transfer this meaning from textile to literature, to say, well, why poetry warp? I translate it as classical. So it's almost like a canonized, the best use of language. And it forms the backbone of the culture that is almost like a warp going through gravitationally this way. And whatever the popular culture at the time, they can weft through this warping line. But that's the main, the spirit of the core of this language. And when literature, or either in the form of poetry, I guess in ancient times poetry probably, because it's shorter, it's highly condensed, succinct way of use of language, that's put into, if we regard it as a warp, that's like we canonize this collection of poems. So 诗经 is, as I can see here, 诗经, book of poems. Even if we translate it as a book, it doesn't give it a special status of 诗经 really is like the beginning of literature in Chinese culture. And it was originally collected through government officials to different local cultures with their own dialects, with their own songs, and apparently the poetry were lyrics of songs that reflecting the local people's lives. And such government officials collect them as a kind of feedback loop to compile and send to the central government back then to show the livelihood of all the regional economies and people. So it's their ancient times informational collection for, I guess, sponsored and for the purpose of maintaining good, harmonious societal stability from the point of political government point of view. So it's a central government sent down, and this lyrics eventually we lost the music and we're left with poetry. So I guess we can almost say like lyrics are themselves poetry, just so that today we have recordings of both audio and the lyrics, and but 诗经 probably 2,000 or 3,000 years ago at the beginning of Chinese language, because many of the expressions, the words, the characters were no longer in use. So we can almost, it's even, I cannot make that comparison, like Shakespearean English, right? It's different from today's English. So this 诗经's English, this ancient book of poetry probably is similar, probably in a bigger scale, even longer time span. But we use warp, this jing, as our classical or canon. 神经, okay, nervous wiring. I translate it as a wiring because just like a warp, it's a connection of different parts of to hold the fabric together. You have to have a warp. So same thing as our whole nervous system. You have to have this warping or this wiring thing going on, and that's how Chinese translate nervous systems. We use 经 as if it's warps that's running through our whole body. Okay, 月经 moon passing. Okay, 经 also because it's underground waterways, right? So it contains within the word, even before textile, this intricate network of moving water moving underground. So it still have this passing the sense of movement in there. And what is moon? So moon in Chinese means cyclical, monthly, because the moon circle every month, right? And so we use 月 to mean monthly, monthly passing. It's a Chinese way to say period, woman's menstrual period. We say moon passing. It's kind of poetic, right? Okay, so this is Jing Warp, and I guess this is somebody try to reimagine the book of poems by giving it music to go with the language. But it's all guessing. We lost that music. We're left with words. Thank you for your time. See you another day.